When we first moved to LA, it felt so foreign to me. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so everything was suddenly very different. The vastness of living in a city, the streets, the weather, or lack thereof. I wanted to find a way to make a connection to this place where I'm going to be living for who knows how long. We moved here in the summertime when it was very, very hot, but it was also incredibly colorful. We would always drive past all of these enormous bushes that were just bedazzled with flowers that were all really breathtaking. My dad always seems to know all the names of the plants, so growing up I learned about the flowers that you can find in the Northwest. But as I passed the different plants that were here in California, I found that I couldn't name a single one. I kept pointing out different flowers and asking people what they were. What kind of tree is this? My husband even gave me a book about California native plants for my birthday. But my floral education really got started when I started taking walks around my new neighborhood. In the beginning, that's all I really did was wander around and just look at all the flowers. These rambles around the streets of my neighborhood and then back to my apartment have reminded me of a 1943 short film I watched in college called Meshes of the Afternoon. The film primarily takes place in just one apartment and the street just outside of that apartment. It's about a woman who's having a dream where she sees a hooded figure that she can never catch up with. She sees all of these different objects over and over again, like a loaf of bread with a knife in it, a key, a flower. The dream becomes more and more cyclical, and she always ends up in the same place where she started. Whether it's running down the street to catch up with the hooded figure, or climbing the stairs to her bedroom, she is always in the same places and is never really progressing. This movie is really famous for being one of the first of its kind, in that it's very avant-garde. It's a film about a woman, made by a woman. I won't really get into all of the different details of the film, all of the different interpretations, even plot-wise. There's a lot more to it than what I described. But what I will say about it is actually how I feel about most silent film. That it's a form of visual poetry, that the pieces individually don't make as much sense as the whole of it, and that I'm much more concerned about how the visuals of the film make me feel, rather than gleaning as much symbolism out of it as I can. I found this really great quote from the filmmaker and star, Maya Deren. She says that the film is concerned with the interior experiences of an individual. It does not record an event which could be witnessed by other persons. Rather, it reproduces the way in which the subconscious of an individual will develop, interpret, and elaborate an apparently simple and casual incident into a critical emotional experience. In so many ways, my experience so far in LA has been fairly internal. I really understand the idea of the dreamlike state that simple tasks can take on. My life, like the film, is kind of cyclical in nature, in that there is little variation in the things I do day to day. It can be a little isolating living in a big city when it's difficult to drive places and you don't have a steady job yet and your husband is in school. I leave my apartment, I walk the streets, I go to the store and go back to the apartment and then back to the streets and back to the apartment. My exploration of the city hasn't been very far-reaching. Other than my immediate neighborhood, I've really only seen a few other neighborhoods and your basic main attractions. I suppose this is all to say that when I step outside in my regular neighborhood, in my normal part of town that isn't trying to be old Hollywood, besides the abandoned Elizabeth Taylor Aquatic Center down the street. Maya Deren's Los Angeles streets look just like mine, and I think that it's really beautiful that they do. I found that when I was out and about, I wanted to gather a few flowers in order to press them. However, this was a little challenging because I didn't know how to transport the flower safely back to my apartment in order to press it. Then I thought of these amazing notebooks, very similar to field notes, that you can get in packs on Amazon. I figured I could temporarily press the flower in the small notebook while I was out, and then move it to a flower press when I got home. I got some binder clips to keep the flowers from falling out, to keep the notebook closed, and it worked perfectly. I was going to transport all of the flowers in the notebook to a larger flower press that I made, but I did kind of a bad job making it, so I thought for now I can just press this batch in the small notebook and then try again later. These guys have been chilling under a big pile of books for a while. So let's see how these flowers are doing. Those turned out really well. Those ones didn't press too well, but I didn't expect them to because they're so delicate. But they do look cool. I think those are the bottle brush ones. Some of my pressed flowers I've framed, and they look really cool when you do that, but it just depends on the kind of flower that you're pressing or the kind of leaf that you're pressing, what you want to do with it once it's pressed. What I'll probably do with these ones is either laminate them or maybe Mod Podge them onto something. Here I think these are bougainvillea. Nice. I see a lot of these trees around, and I still have no idea what they are. And if there's anything in between there. Yeah, a little guy. That one's really cool. Wow, there's more of those. Gosh, even dried, the color is so vibrant. Love those, they're like tissue paper. I think that's everything. Yep. So it's winter time now in California, where it's been shockingly rainy and cold, and the flowers are far more scarce than they were in the summer. My walks around the neighborhood have been few and far between, but I don't think that's due to the weather or the lack of flowers. I've found many different ways to occupy my thoughts and my time these past few months, especially when things have been difficult and work is harder to find. It can all feel similar and dreamlike in its repetition and casualness. And every action simply interlaces and creates the meshes of day-to-day living.